Well, Father Enman and his team do impressive work to provide housing in the greater Worcester and Boston areas. Father, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wait till I see the pictures that Father Reed is holding. We're talking a little bit about them. We'll talk in a second about it. But before we do, tell me about Matthew 25 and its mission.
Okay. Matthew 25 is a private nonprofit corporation organized here in Massachusetts, and the mission is to provide food relief and housing relief to people in economic need. And the most conspicuous way we fulfill that mission is by rehabilitating abandoned houses. We have 9 houses up and running in Worcester now, and 1 in the Dorchester neighborhood of Boston.
Now, there must be similar type efforts going on in other parts of the country, too. Are you aware of any of those?
Well, there's the big institution that a lot of people know about is Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, sure, right, yeah.
They work with people who can afford to own the house,
Okay.
who can contribute to the rehabilitation or the building of the house and pay all the taxes and the insurance. And I'm trying to work with a group of people who are not quite at that level yet.
Okay.
People who cannot afford, to build a house or
So this is
pay
pretty
the
unique.
taxes. It's fairly unique.
Yeah.
There are some community development corporations that do rental housing, but we're one of the few that I know of that's a freestanding independent corporation that does quality, affordable rental housing.
And what are some of the challenges, the big challenges that you've faced?
The biggest challenge for me is always raising the money to make the project work. For the first house, it took me about 5 or 6 years to raise about $100,000 to put into that project. We were very blessed to have the city of Worcester at the time contribute federal home funds to the program and block grant money, so we got about $100,000 in those funds. And then we took out a bank loan from the flagship bank at the time for $83,000, and that put together the financing for the project. We were able to pay the bank back. We were on time with every payment through the rents that we collected from the tenants.
Oh, I see.
So they did have a role in helping to finance the project through the rents that they paid. It helped to pay off the bank loan.
What made you decide to do this? Was it just you saw the need? Did someone come up to you? What happened?
Well, I was aware of the need. I'm a legal aid lawyer by training. I went to Boston College Law School. But the foundational experience for me was one day when I was a third-year theology student. I was reading a book by John Sobrino, a Jesuit from Central America. The book is called The True Church and the Poor. And one of the things he said in the book was what Christian communities need to do today is to make the values of the Gospels concrete. For example, Matthew 25 must be made concrete. I knew what Matthew 25 was about, about giving food to the hungry and drink to the thirsty and welcoming the stranger, clothing the naked, comforting the sick, visiting those in prison. But for some reason on that reading, it hit me and struck me very deeply. And I put the book down, I prayed about it, and I resolved at the end of that prayer that if I could, I would try to make Matthew 25 concrete someday. The following year was my 4th and final year of theology school. I had to do a pastoral project, and I proposed starting a private nonprofit corporation called Matthew 25 to do food relief and housing relief, and that's how it got started.
Now, let's get really concrete here. I want to show our friends at home a picture of a house that needed to be rehabilitated. Can you tell us about this house, Father?
Yes, that house is at 5052 Queen Street in Worcester. It had become entirely dilapidated. It was being used at the time as a crack house and for prostitution. And we were able to get ownership of that property. That house, believe it or not, is listed on the Massachusetts Register of Historical Places. We got to it just in time because it was on the City of Worcester's demolition list. Oh. And we were able to raise the money to transform it into housing for people in need.
Ooh. And there is the transformation right there.
Yeah. And I would like to tell you a little bit of story about how that happened. It wasn't just me raising the money, it was volunteers. I had many volunteers, mostly students from Holy Cross College in Worcester, who did the interior demolition. And then one of the biggest blessings that has ever come our way was Worcester Technical High School adopted us as their shop project. Oh, so the carpentry teacher came with his students, the electrical teacher came with his students, the plumbing teacher came with his students, and I was able to use the funds that I had raised to buy supplies, and they were able to use those supplies with their students and make that kind of transformation that you saw in the picture. They have worked, and they have worked with us on every house in Worcester so far, all 9.
It's a great
And
relationship.
now number 10, which is under construction.
And it's all about service, too, which is wonderful
all
for
about
these young
service.
people to see that we need to help one another.
Yes,
So
they're getting on-site skills training in their chosen trade. They're having supplies, you know, that are high quality, that are current, and they don't have to wait for a requisition from the school system. Either I'm on site in the morning or my assistant is on site in the morning. We ask them, what do you need today? We make sure they have those supplies. If they're not there, I go out and get them, or my assistant goes out and gets them.
how do you pick the families?
Well, it's a 2-step process. When we submitted our application to the Internal Revenue Service to get 501c3 tax exempt status, we committed to use the economic eligibility guidelines of the Federal Home Funds Program. So the first step is that any applicant has to meet those guidelines. Once we determine that they're economically eligible by virtue of their income, then we have a second round where we start to interview the families. At that point, we're looking for responsibility. We want to make sure that they'll respect the property. If it's a multifamily house, that they'll respect the other tenants and that they'll respect the neighbors. And we do that through the questions we ask, through letters of recommendation, and other ways that we have developed over time.
Now you have a little side job too, being a Jesuit priest
Yes.
and an alumnus of BC Law School. You're also the chaplain over there, aren't you?
I'm the chaplain at BC Law School, and I'm the assistant to the dean for students. So I do a lot of student services work, and I do a fair amount of pastoral work. I'm responsible for the daily mass at the law school campus.
Nice.
And we have mass there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I do the presiding on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And Father Frank Brennan, who's a Jesuit visiting us from Australia, takes care of Monday for me.
So you have a lot of free time.
I do. late at night.
Well, thank you so much, Father. Where can people learn more about this great thing you're doing, Matthew 25?
The best way would be to visit our website, and it's called, the website is matt25.org, matt25.org. And I invite anybody to take a look. There are pictures of all the houses that we've worked on site there, and they can find out about the project by going to that site.
Makes a difference in people's lives. Father, thank you so much for being with
All
us
right,
today.
thank you
Thanks,
very
Fred.
much.
Thank you.